The following is the introduction to Aquarius Rising, Christianity and Judaism Explained Using the Science of the Stars, available mid-April 2022. Please note, unlike my other books, this is not a book on artificial intelligence or extended intelligence. Introduction. There exists a photo of a 16-month-old me on the knee of my elderly and blind great-grandmother. Many have said it's impossible to remember thoughts from that early age, yet looking back at that photo, that exact memory comes flooding back. With my mother and grandmother looking onwards, I was placed on my great-grandmother's knees, and I thought, this is important to this old lady, remember it. Yes, I recall that, and actually hearing it in words and understanding it. I can still recall the smell of my great-grandmother. It was a moment of awakening. Thus began my personal quest to answer the question, what is this all about? Early attempts to explain to me were related to a Catholic Christian upbringing that included the 1st through 6th grade at a Catholic school. The Catholics borrowed from Aristotle, who once said, "Give me a child until he is 7, and I will show you the man." What they didn't count on was my mother instilling me not only a kind nature, but also a love for understanding, knowledge, and wisdom. The efforts by the Church to satisfy the questions of a young boy failed to convince. The quest to find out what is this all about continued through the decades. I read many books, and trips overseas were taken to temples. They say wisdom comes with age. Finally, I remembered when my mother introduced me to the stars. We would go outside and look up at the night sky and look at their beauty. I wondered if the stars held some clue. Thus, the research began into Astro Theology, also known as the science of the stars. There has been a tremendous amount written about the topic, much to my surprise. I dived into the ancient manuscripts and books as much as possible. The book before you represents my current most right marker regarding religion and spirituality, especially the Judeo-Christian tradition. It was written primarily for the author himself. If it helps others on their spiritual journey, well, so much the better. It may be difficult for future historians who come across this book to understand organized religion's grasp over both individuals and public institutions. Once a magic trick is exposed or learned, it is impossible to go back to seeing things the old way. The spell has been broken at that point. New pathways of understanding and creativity develop as individuals are free with an unshackled mind. By presenting these topics concisely and logically, this work continues in a long line that preceded it. What makes this work unique is timing. Giordano Bruno may have had the correct understanding. He was only a few centuries too early. Aquarius Rising is not meant to cover every aspect of Astro Theology. Such a work would be extensive and by itself could take decades just to write. This work examines some of the significant points regarding Christianity and Judaism and their relationship to the heavenly beings. It does not seek to be inclusive on every topic. For the serious student, rest assured that if there is something of interest, it is highly likely that somewhere over the last 2,000 years it has been explained and written about. If there is something the reader feels is missing, no apology is offered. The bibliography provided in the appendix will help the reader start doing their own research and drawing their own conclusions. Aquarius Rising is a book exploring the astro-theological foundations of current monotheistic religions. In particular, it examines the astrological foundations of both Christianity and Judaism. Many stories, parables, and festivals are explained astrologically. It has 42 chapters. The number 42 in contemporary culture references the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. Aquarius Rising. Section 1, Foundations, presents astrological basics that serve as a foundation for the following sections. Section 2, Christianity, illustrates how familiar parables, stories, and Christian festivals are related to the stars. Section 3, Judaism, examines Jewish traditions considering the heavenly movements. Section 4, Culture, examines the historical clash between the partnership and dominator cultures. It also looks at the role of the priesthood in monotheism in today's dominator culture. The final chapter introduces tools that may assist in a spiritual journey. Further work may develop and present these ideas. As we cast our gaze back to the foundations of modern religious faiths, we should consider the times in which they were developed. Recall that the printing press was invented in 1436. The literacy rate was likely minuscule and limited to the religious clergy or the wealthy. Considering a historical perspective, literacy levels for the world's population have risen drastically in the last couple of centuries. While only 12% of the people in the world could read and write in 1820, today the share is reversed. Only 12% of the world population in 2022 remained illiterate. Imagine yourself in 1820. How is leadership to communicate with the poor, uneducated population who cannot read nor write and would thus likely be limited in ability to reason? Now imagine yourself in the year the printing press was invented, 1436. You have the same issues, only much worse. Now go way back to 2000 BCE. How many people were educated then? What was life like? Imagine yourself as part of an agrarian community that was dependent upon nature for rain and good weather for your crops to grow. Your Semite community raises multiple things: wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, dates, lentils, fava beans, chickpeas, leeks, garlic, onions, black radishes, and muskmelons. Your life depends on the successful sowing, growing, harvesting, and storage of these items. Failure to do work once spring starts and the difficulties of the dark and cold winter could prove fatal. The winter months are a challenge as you don't have electricity, running water, or refrigeration. There were no toilets such as known today. Your floor is dirt, though you may have a carpet. There are no glass windows. Moreover, you only have 1 or 2 sets of clothes that you will wear all fall and winter. Under such conditions, disease can take root and run rampant. There are elders or leaders of your group. They seem to have a better idea of things than the general population. How would these leaders deal with the poor, uneducated, and unsophisticated population? How would they care for them? How would they communicate with and motivate their population? Astro Theology is an ancient system first discovered by those who raised their eyes to the starry night and contained the basic principles from which all doctrines and systems radiate. As Leonardo da Vinci said, there is nothing new under the sun. The reader will see that every religion has an astrological foundation. Every science springs from the human mind and those starry realms. It is not right to coerce or impose opinions on others. This work does not seek to do so. The path to enlightenment is walked by those who actively search for something missing that their soul desires to merge itself with. When it comes to religion, people become very territorial. Often they feel if it is a personal affront or attack. The usual response is to immediately defend their traditional beliefs as they have been conditioned to do so. Some may say, "How dare you question the Bible? You must be a demon." This is the reply of those who don't wish to be examined. What they are saying in effect is, "How dare you question my authority?" Know that if someone takes your spirituality, they have taken it with your permission. No one can force you to give your spirituality away. Perhaps most do not question their belief system due to rarely encountering or being presented with enough evidence cohesively and logically to rethink things. Aquarius Rising is written for the modern reader using current language and logically informative, yet concisely. The rights of others are both recognized and supported. Others are free to follow their own cultural and religious path. This work does not advocate forcing anyone to do or follow anything in particular. It is not an attack on any individual or institution. Religion is in the public domain, though. As such, it must necessarily expect public examination about its customs, rituals, holidays, and doctrines. Adventuring into Astro Theology may prove uncomfortable for some, as it removes the Gnostic veil. Miyamoto Musashi said, "Truth is not what you want it to be, it is what it is. You must bend to its power or live a lie." May Aquarius Rising empower a few, enabling them to live in greater harmony within the world. From these things, the sun's path, the planets, the moon, the zodiacal signs, the constellations, the individual stars, the deacons, the observation, the mathematics, came the myths used to describe nature, heroes and villains, conquests and slavery, birth, death, resurrection. These stories inspired humans, helped their survival, and pushed their quest for even greater understanding. The search for truth looks backward and not forward. Be warned, adventuring is addictive. Extraordinary things are waiting to be discovered. As water eventually wears down stone, the glorious turning of heaven continues, and even the new priestly caste is powerless before it. Rico Rojo, Crow Mountain, West Virginia, 2022.